I tossed and turned, unable to sleep even though I had to work the next day. Closing my eyes, my mind was filled with memories of the past. It's been over 4 months since we broke up. He suddenly ended things which might be considered cheating, although he doesn't admit it. This all happened at a time when I loved him the most. We are alumni. He was my first love and I was just his second. He said his first relationship was brief and simple in high school. After we got together, he didn't behave like someone with much experience and I accepted that explanation. I have a bit of a mental block against close contact with guys. When we first officially met, he had just finished showering and his soap scent lingered in the air. That night, I told a friend that I understood what physical attraction meant. He mentioned that his family had a cute duck. He didn't do well on his college entrance exam, which is why he came to our school. We talked a lot that night. He always made me feel comfortable. I had a great impression of him. He was sunny, cheerful, smart, clean, and caring, with a physique that met my standards. 180 centimeters tall, broad-shouldered, and handsome. During that time, I felt that my previous single life had been worth it. I even thought that way before we broke up. I have a fear of animals, but our school had many stray cats and dogs. When we first started dating, he said he would pick me up from the library every night. I initially felt awkward because I was used to being independent. So, I would bike back to the dorm, but he insisted he wanted to see me and set an alarm just to pick me up. Despite his busy schedule in the student council, he always made time to walk me back to the dorm before returning to his work. One afternoon, I was eating in the cafeteria when I ran into him and his roommate. I hadn't told him I would be there. He asked why I was alone and where my roommate was. I said my roommate went to see her boyfriend. He told me to let him know next time I was alone because he thought eating alone was lonely. I jokingly said, "Aren't you ditching your roommate right now?" He laughed and replied, "My girlfriend is the priority." From that day on, he would ask me every day if I was eating alone and if I needed company. One afternoon, feeling tired from studying, I texted him to ask what he was doing. He said he was in his dorm and I told him I missed him a bit. After waiting for over 10 minutes, he replied, "Do you want to come down and see me?" He specifically came to the library to find me. One time we had an argument about something, but he still came to pick me up from the library that night. When he saw me, he said, "I was really angry at first, but when I saw you, my anger disappeared." One day in the dorm, my roommate said she saw him in the cafeteria with her boyfriend, looking indifferent, but he smiled only when he saw me. I always knew he smiled at me every night under the library. I'm a bit stubborn. Even if it's my fault during an argument, I never apologize first. He always comes to me first. Later, we started a long-distance relationship. We would argue, but I never doubted he would change his heart. After fights, I would apologize, feeling his love, and I often expressed my feelings on Weibo. Last year, we ended our long-distance relationship. We still argued, but no matter whose fault it was, he always blamed me. I didn't mind. I believed tolerance was key. I loved him and he loved me, so I was willing to be the one to back down. When he graduated, he didn't find a job. Instead, he was preparing for graduate school entrance exams. I reminded him not to pin all his hopes on it and offered to help him fill out applications and interview for jobs. Unexpectedly, the day after his exam, he overslept and missed it. I was furious when I saw the trending topic related to this on my feed, realizing it happened to me. After all, he was already in his second attempt, yet he was so irresponsible about his life. I was grateful that I had considered him ahead of time. Here's the English translation of the additional text. Before he received the job offer, he was particularly anxious, and I kept comforting him. I told him it was okay, that I was there for him and he didn't need to worry about the future. Our salaries were enough for our daily expenses and we had our parents' support. Everything would be fine. However, my comfort seemed to have no effect. He remained absorbed in his own world. Even though we lived less than 10 kilometers apart, when I mentioned wanting to see him, he always had various excuses to decline. Later, when he received the job offer, he finally felt at ease. He hurried to handle the onboarding process, and his father advised him not to rush and to wait for the results. Only I knew the underlying details. When I heard he got the offer, my happiness matched his. It meant we wouldn't be long distance anymore. He had asked me if I would be willing to marry him while he pursued his master's degree. After he started work, he called me first thing every day after work, and I felt our relationship was even better than before. In April, before he went for training, we met and everything felt like old times. The training was closed off and far from me. On the last day, because I said I wanted to see him, he made various excuses which made me angry. He firmly suggested breaking up. I later found out he was with a female colleague. He insisted they started dating only after our breakup. I said, "Yes, you're very honest, you were with her the next day." At that time I loved him the most and thought everything would improve. I never doubted he would develop feelings for other girls. Even his phone password was related to me. Before I knew the truth, I had told my friends we had an argument. Although I knew we would reconcile, arguing always made me sad. I didn't expect reality to hit me hard. His brother told me he had already moved on and suggested I should get over it soon. I once thought that girl must be better than me. When we met, he told me that she wouldn't be his future wife. He would definitely look for someone who could help him. I was confused. Then why are you with her? He said he no longer had feelings for me. Hearing that made me feel ridiculous. His actions before our argument didn't suggest that at all. He had been sharing his schedule with me every day during his training. Later, by chance, I learned a lot about that girl and found out she was lacking in many areas compared to me. Her salary was only half of mine, her looks and figure weren't as good, and her family background was poor. I really wanted to know what he saw in her. I didn't understand, and neither did his father. His father scolded him for what happened after our breakup. Because all this occurred when I loved him the most and my hopes for the future peaked, I felt especially sad and once thought I couldn't endure it. I had moved to his city for him and had no friends here apart from him, so I was particularly reliant on him, but now I had lost even him. During that time, some people told me that my life had been too smooth. Such comments hurt me even more. I admitted my life had been easy, but ease wasn't an excuse for hurting me. He also told me multiple times that my life had been too smooth and that I couldn't understand many things. I acknowledged that I couldn't empathize with experiences I hadn't lived through, but my ease hadn't harmed anyone. What's wrong with having a smooth life? I haven't experienced the pain of separation. I have loving parents, my father provides for me and my mother cares for me without forcing me. I just need to work hard toward my goals and pursue the future I want. After our breakup, I reflected on him and realized he had deceived me many times. He always claimed he wasn't playing games, was tidying up, or was visiting his grandfather when in fact he was gaming. I also understood why he struggled with so many things. Fortunately, I have slowly moved on now. I am particularly grateful to those who helped pull me out of the mire as well as to myself. I've started to meet new friends and feel my growth and confidence during this time. My career is also going well and I can engage in activities I enjoy outside of work. Sometimes I even think that if we hadn't broken up, I might have lost my sense of self and become just an ordinary woman. Love can change in an instant, so always love yourself and don't fear anyone's departure. This experience, while it had its sweet moments, brought deeper wounds but also more growth. Alright, it's time to sleep.